Just let me know when everyone's in. Eliana, please.
Yep, everyone should be in.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. We were waiting for a few other people to join, but we'll get started now. It's now 10:08, so let's just get started with Module 3 of the Building Sustainable Businesses. As you recall, we'd sort of suggested that perhaps the best way to go about this was to read through and try to focus on some of the exercises, answering some of the questions and doing some of the exercises that you're given. I think that's sort of the best way for you to do this, because that will give you an idea as to what you need to focus on as far as the module itself is concerned. But in any case, this week's module is, as you can see on the screen, this week's module is all about making strategic. I'm sorry. Let me just pull up my making strategic decisions, strategic decision making. 1 second. Okay. Okay, so strategic decision making. So just to give you an overview of like what we should be thinking about, you should be thinking that your success really depends upon your ability to think strategically and to make critical decisions about the future direction of your business. To think strategically and make critical decisions about the future direction of your business. Now, thinking strategically is really the key to developing your business strategy, because at each stage, you are going to be required to make certain tactical decisions that's going to dictate the course of your business. And ultimately, your course is going to be tied to what is ultimately your goal. How do you get to the vision, and what your mission is going to be? How do you execute your mission to be able to get to your goal and your vision? So the question that we ask initially is, what is strategy? What exactly is strategy? When we say, making a strategic decision, what is strategy? If we go to the next slide, strategy is really a question of how you go about accomplishing the ultimate goals of your business. In the process of developing your business, developing your product, your services, and deploying those, the question that really needs to be asked by yourself is, what tactics do you adopt in executing the mission? What kinds of how do you position yourself to think about how you're going to really allow your company to stand out as a company that provides value to your customer base? And you do this sort of from the outset. And why is this important? Well, it's important because it's a path to achieving the goals. It's a path to defining your market position. It's a path to meeting your market needs, and it's the path to establishing your competitive advantage. And so, the strategy using tactics is the key to be able to achieve your goals, define your market position, and meet market needs and competitive advantages. So the question then that we should be focusing on initially, the topic is, really going to be focused initially on maintaining competitive advantage. How do we go about maintaining competitive advantage, from the very early on? In fact, you should be thinking, if you have not thought about your competitive advantage, this is something that you want to sort of really focus on. The last module at the end did provide some exercises to focus on, the things that you really do well. So let's just talk a little bit about competitive advantage. So your competitive advantage is your chosen business strategy, that will make the most of what your company does best. And this is what competitive advantage is. You have identified in the past modules what is it that you really, really do well as a company? You know, what sort of drove you to establish this business, and what gave you the sense that somehow you would be able to add value in the marketplace? So that's the thing that you're focused on, this, you know, what you do well. And that thing should help you to find a profitable position in the marketplace that will sustain your business over time. Okay, so ultimately, the competitive advantage is for a purpose, and it's to help the business establish itself in the marketplace, allows it to be profitable over a period of time. And in thinking about, you know, when do you know you have built a competitive advantage, you know, you want to think of it in terms of accomplishing three things primarily. Okay, and all of these things are essential. You sort of can't just, you know, pick one and disband with the others. You know, whether or not you provide a product or service that is deemed valuable by your customers is the first test. I mean, you know, whatever we're doing, we're not doing it as a hobby. We're doing it because people who want to pay money for it will deem that it has actually, you know, adds value to them. And, you know, also in determining if that thing is a competitive advantage, you want to think about whether or not it differentiates from other competitors in the market. So, you know, is there a way for you to do this that allows you to be somewhat unique from your competitors in the marketplace? And of course, that begs the question, you know, have we even thought about our competitors? And that's something that we will discuss, you know, a short while. But thinking about it from the standpoint of differentiation is absolutely critical to the process of thinking about your competitive advantage. So, and then last item that you want to consider to meet the test, to think about the test as to whether or not this is something that provides a competitive advantage is does it exhibit your expertise? Does it exhibit processes or formulas that other businesses or your competitors will find it difficult to apply? Is there some unique way that you're providing these services? Now, obviously, I mean, I think it's pretty, common sense that if a company sees one company doing something very well and they have pretty nice uptake, the companies will follow. People tend to follow, you know, a successful model. And so, you know, so at the end of the day, the question of whether or not the expertise or the process or the formulas will be difficult to copy, sort of it lasts for so long. Eventually somebody is able to, or others are able to do so. But the beauty that one tends to have as a business in looking at that particular element is the whole question of being an early mover or a first mover. You know, if it's not necessarily a first mover, but an early mover, let's say in your marketplace, in your geographic area. So those are the three things that really taken together. You have to think about them, you know, in terms of establishing whether or not you do have a competitive advantage. You do have to think about the three of them collectively, whether or not to provide the product or service being valuable by the customers, whether or not you are differentiated from your competitors in the market, and whether or not you have exhibited the expertise, process, or formulas that are difficult to copy. So that's sort of the competitive advantage in a nutshell, if you will. Now, how do we go about creating a competitive advantage on slide 5? How do we think about creating a competitive advantage? There are two elements that one considers. And this is slide 5, Ileana, by the way. Two elements that one considers. The first element is the price, okay? You can create an edge, a competitive edge with your price, with your pricing. You can also do it through the market. So if you're thinking about, your production costs, your efficiency, and available technology, those things sort of build into the price. The price, I think it's in module 5 that we sort of do a fairly deep dive into the pricing. But But pricing is one way of doing it, but also, how you go about the market is another. All of this, the factors that establish your company as having a unique position in the market, what we call market differentiators. Okay, so in order to say that you have a competitive advantage that is not necessarily your pricing, but that is market driven, you have to be able to have what's called market differentiators. Market differentiators are completely distinct from price and cost advantages. So if we were to, and I would encourage you to look at Kaufman 76, where it talks about, let's get it, let's pull it up. We go back to Kaufman 76. Okay, so, it gives you here, some of the kinds of considerations or factors that you may think about when you want to think about, what your competitive advantage is. And this is actually this is critical, because at the end of the day, if you want to think of sustainability of your business being competitive, you really do have to, we really do have to think about what's the edge, what's the edge that the company is bringing to the marketplace. So, companies that build and sustain a distinct market differentiator are generally tend to have certain unique attributes. And on page 76, as I'd mentioned, we have competitive advantage using market differentiators. We have here a list of factors that one wants to consider. A unique way to meet the market needs of a niche market. Okay, the unique way to meet the market needs of a niche market is one way of doing this. Brand recognition is another way of doing this. Okay, brand recognition, that's fairly rare for smaller companies that are earlier in the cycle of business. But brand recognition is one thing. Proprietary or trade secrets of operations, particularly if you're in technology, that's one way of doing that. If you have certain inventions that you have exclusivity on, whether it's something that you created yourself or something that you get licensed to you on an exclusive basis, proprietary trade secrets for operations allows you to have a competitive advantage. Customized or proprietary software or technology, again, is another sort of similar to the trade secrets, and is something that we want to consider as a unique advantage, as well as patents and trademarks. Unique combination of products and services, access to leading or scientific research, highly skilled and creative staff, reputation for quality and innovation. Now, when we look at small companies that don't necessarily have the technology edge that was referenced in about 3 or 4 of these, we want to look at what kinds of staff do we have? What kinds of skill sets do they have? What do they really bring to the table that allows us to really sort of stand out from the competition? That could be a critical advantage, having your personnel be a driver for your business, that sort of enhances your skills, your knowledge base, not only enhances it, but also sort of broadens it, is a potential way of creating competitive advantages. Also, the attention to detail, or reputation for quality and innovation. Being small and nimble is a way to sort of react to the market, which we will discuss in a little while when we talk about business model. But the reputation for quality and innovation, your ability to innovate, to be able to meet the market needs when it shifts, that is something that you can, or to innovate to meet a specific requirement or specific requirements of your customer base is a means of establishing differentiators. So, as one of these that we really, we'll focus on in a short while is a unique way of meeting needs of the niche market. There are companies that have actually taken this and have made major sort of, inroads into the marketplace and become complete leaders using that, using something very, very simple. Amazon, for instance, is an example that we can think of, because initially Amazon was just meeting a niche market of selling books and records and the like to people, through their online, platform. And because they were an early mover, as I'd mentioned earlier, because they were an early mover doing this, they had significant take-up early on. But Amazon did some of the things that we'll discuss for later on in this module. They deployed some of the tactics of thinking of broadening the market, of being a platform not only for themselves but for third-party sellers, and then also coming up with a unique, expanding that unique way, because usually it used to be that they would mail the stuff to you, and now they sort of developed this whole delivery mechanism that allows them to be able to, and distribution mechanism that allows them to be able to meet the needs of consumers virtually overnight. And then the use of technology, that one slide where you can buy immediately, it's a very addictive. So that is, that's a market differentiator that turned a company that was a first early mover upstart in a niche market into an absolute behemoth. So one never wants to discount, a simple idea, but just a unique way of meeting the needs of that market, of that niche market. It's something that could really pay significant dividends, if you continue to deploy it the right way. So moving on to, to where it talks about now the companies with price or cost advantage over competitors, it says that they usually have internal strengths that are difficult for other competitors to replace. So if you're looking at, having cost advantages, which is, to be honest with you, I will tell you that cost advantages those are probably the I would say lesser sort of appealing of the two categories of differentiators. And the reason why is because there is a race down to the bottom potentially. You can use intrinsic mechanisms to be able to allow yourself to price yourself under the market. But the issue that tends to follow is that at some point you can have a behemoth that looks to undercut you with prices, okay? Knowing that they could be making money on one arm of their business, but losing money in this category in order to force a company that is only relying on price out of the marketplace. That's a strategy that has been used time and time again. And so, but pricing is, that is a tool for a market differentiator. And so some of the strengths that companies have, and when you think about pricing, is they have investments in products, production, and equipment. That's not something that for them is particularly costly or difficult. Maybe there were already sunk costs from earlier, but production and equipment investments are there. Expertise in designing product services efficiently, are there as well. So, if you have those built-in expertise, you can create a cost advantage, a pricing advantage through cost savings. Access to less expensive materials. It goes without saying. It's self-defining. If you're able to get the raw materials at a lower cost, then obviously you can go to market at a lower cost. Operational expense. But again, the issue with that, by the way, access to less expensive materials. The issue with that is that what happens when the materials you don't then have access to less expensive materials? Then it sort of eliminates your cost advantage. So so again, we do this with caution. This whole price price as a market differentiator should be done with caution. Operation processes replicated consistently. So that is an operating efficiency. And this is something that is stressed because even if you have a differentiator of another, in the market category, if you will, you still want to be able to maximize your margins, your bottom line with operational processes that are replicated consistently. So outsourcing partnerships, outsourcing is a good way of thinking about reducing costs. Efficient distribution channels is another. Effective hiring practices, low turnover, highly skilled and knowledgeable staff. And the issue with the hiring practices and tends to be you spend a lot of money, you invest a lot of money in training people, getting people up to speed. It takes people a while to sort of get up to speed where you're running efficiently. So as little turnover as one can have, the better, because there is a certain amount of intellectual capabilities that are developed in a good staff that understands how your operations run, that can probably do the work of 1.5 people. Efficient production or operational systems is another area where that can lead to a pricing differentiator. Innovating equipment or technology, as well as strategic alliances that support delivery to customers. Now, that last category is a category that I think one should always also be looking for. So how can we leverage an infrastructure that already exists in order to, number one, we add to their bottom line, but it decreases our costs. It's something that we do not have to go out and invest in. It exists. So it's a matter of finding that and leveraging that in order to be able to deliver it for your customers and at a reduced cost. So again, as we were talking, as I was mentioning earlier, you have some examples here that I think are worth looking at. These are sort of common universe companies that are just known, where to talk about unique product and service of Apple, with its iPhones now primarily, its Macs, iPods, iPads. And then Zappos. Zappos is regarded as having a unique product or service because it was one of the early movers, one of the first online retailers. And people, you think of buying shoes online in particular, you're going to think Zappos. At least I do. And by the way, I would tell you I had this idea before Zappos came out, and they're just, anyway. Unique combination of services and products. So you think of FedEx Kinko's. Now, FedEx Kinko's, that has a suite of office products and services. FedEx Kinko's, wasn't always FedEx Kinko's. There was FedEx and there was Kinko's. When I was in undergrad, it was Kinko's. And FedEx came up with this brilliant idea of marrying the two. So they did an acquisition of Kinko's, leveraged the Kinko's brand of providing certain kinds of office, quote unquote, products, of services and products, and then also allowing FedEx to establish a network of locations where people can go to also ship parcel. So it's been a very successful marriage or acquisition for FedEx sort of getting Kinko's. But that's a great example of how you can use unique combination of products and services in order to establish yourself as establish a differentiator. Logitech is, they have an expensive line of computer peripherals. Again, they were an early mover, and they're a market leader because they were there, and that's what people think of. I mean, their products are pretty much ubiquitous as far as computer peripherals are concerned. Unique way to meet needs of the target market. Now, in this category, the examples that we look at are Subway and Starbucks. Okay, if you think about ways to meet your target, ways to meet the needs of your target group, what Subway did is advertise itself as a company that, yes, we do fast food, but we're not going to give you fried foods. We're going to give you fresh vegetables on your sandwiches, so on and so forth. It's been a successful model, still continues to be successful, but that's a unique way of meeting the needs of the target group, people who are thinking about health first. Starbucks coffee, when I was looking at this, I was trying to figure out how Starbucks coffee sort of fits into this. I think Starbucks originally catered to people who wanted to sort of do high-end coffee, who wanted good quality coffee, and the idea of a relaxing place to hang out, for people who were into coffee, sort of worked. But I honestly believe that their edge is, that you can get consistently good quality coffee. You can get it, you pay a little more than Dunkin' Donuts, but you can drink it without milk and sugar. And so, so that's how we think of how, companies may use unique ways to meet the needs of the target group. Now, when we proceed to think about methodology of delivery, again, we get back to the whole Amazon, how they use their focus. The initial focus was books and music. That was delivered via the web. You ordered it via the web, and it was delivered to you. In fact, you weren't calling; you just order it, and they deliver it to you. And they've, as we've said, they've expanded that. They've become more expansive in that model. They found it worked with books and music, and they expanded to other categories. But what they also did was expand to become like a delivering mechanism that is an absolute behemoth. Their network is, distribution and delivery now is what you think of when you think of Amazon. So so everyone goes to Amazon to get everything, and it's made it very easy. And especially in the time of COVID, I mean, this company has exploded in growth because it was so easy to get the things that you wanted and get it fairly quickly. So that method of delivery, this is like, I think, really the pinnacle of this kind of example, how you can have a method of delivery that is an absolute, competitive edge. So you think of Amazon in that way. You think of XM Radio, again, which was first mover satellite radio service to subscribing customers. Again, they were the first movers. There are others, but XM is what comes to mind, which is I don't know how it really sort of redounds to the benefit or the advantage or the favor of like small companies. But if you have a big idea, I would say not to don't sort of dismiss it. So now, what I'm going to do. So before I go on, just want to stop there, just break there really quickly and see if anyone sort of have any thoughts about their business as it relates to unique advantages. What are your, what are some of the things that came to you when you sort of began to look at your company from the standpoint of, what are our differentiators? Is it price? Is it how we do what we do? What are some of those things?
If I could speak, is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. So I realized that. So I'm really good with the niche market, but I think what you mentioned about the price advantage is that as I've been connecting with other people who are in my field, I do video and audio production. I'm realizing just as I've been partnering that their prices are way, way higher than what I've provided. So I'm able to get business because of the pricing, but at the end of the day, it's not a sustainable way of doing business long term.
Right. Yeah, and it's something that could be, I will tell you, it's something that could be, it could be troubling. I mean, and it's something that you do have to plan for. Because, but at least what I would say is this, okay, pricing works. It works when it works. But while it's working, and this is one of the habits that you want to develop, and I think we spoke about it earlier in the modules. One of the habits that you want to develop is constantly thinking about, okay, what do I need to do in terms of scanning, scanning the market for, in order to sort of, to grow, scanning for opportunities to grow. Yeah, in the earlier model, the last model, we talked about going out there and finding out what your customers need. What do they like about your service? That's a big part of what you do. So even while you're sort of in this position where you're primarily using price, there could be certain kinds of differentiators that you're developing that you're not aware. If you don't have questionnaires, if you don't have focus groups, if you're not communicating with your customer, you may not know. But there may be something that you may have that you can probably charge higher for that you're not aware of because you simply have not inquired and looked into it. But one of the responsibilities that we have as business owners is to actually engage the customer and begin to, get a sense of what is it they like. And in conjunction with that is to also look at the marketplace, what's out there, where is this going? We got to take in information, where are things going? How can we sort of, look at perhaps even like a FedEx Kinko's, marrying some other service or marrying a product to our business, because what Kinko's has product and they have service. I'm sorry, FedEx now product and services. So how can we marry the two that are complementary, mutually complementary, to sort of add some edge to the business? So that is something that one wants to do constantly. Just don't observe the news or observe what's going on around you passively. You really have to be active as a business owner in terms of observing the climate. So 6 differentiators on slide 6. 6 differentiators that build competitive advantages. Just to some extent review core competencies. What do you master? Okay, what do you do really well? And as I said, even as you're sort of using price right now, you want to really identify that. Reputation for superior product services, niche market, unique distribution channels, delivery mechanisms, organizational efficiency. The people that you're hiring, and you have processes and procedures that you're using that's seamless to everyone. Unique technology and innovative products. Okay, and so on page 78 of Kaufman, there are some questions that I'd like to sort of grind down in detail. Just have you really begin to, if you have not done so. And one of the things that we mentioned is that really at a minimum try to do the questions, because sometimes you may have some ideas of what the answers are based upon your experience in business. But in going back and looking at some of these, it may help you to crystallize those things, or maybe even change some of those things. But looking at what your core competencies are. I mean, if anyone else wants to sort of volunteer in terms of what they think they have, they have as a core competency, that would be good. What do you do better than your competitors? What do you think you do better than your competitors? Is everyone here just price? Well, what I will do is, instead of putting anyone on the spot, I will ask you to look at these questions and answer these questions, because these questions will lead you, will take you on a path to really identifying, what those edges are. And I will tell you, this is this whole issue of competitive advantage, it is absolutely indispensable to the success of your business. You have to know what it is. You have to know what it is that you've done well. I think it was module 1. Module 1. This was talked about quite a bit by Margaret and Barbara of Crescent Advisors. Just in terms of even thinking about promoting your business, you have to know what that's going to be guided by what you decide that you do well. So let's pay some attention to that. As we sort of go away from here today, really go back and look at this and ask yourself these questions, about your business. So I have here questions on page 78, which I'm going to sort of encourage you to do. So now let's talk for a minute about competition. Let's talk for a minute about your competition. So your competition, knowing who your competitors are is absolutely essential. This is something that I to be honest with you, can't emphasize enough. One has to get out there and gather intelligence. Okay. And by the way, let me just say this: if you need some guidance in sort of helping you do this, this is something that we can do. We can help you sort of, identify some of these things. So, so if you need guidance, just reach out, because there are resources that are out there. In fact, at the end of this chapter, it also sort of gives you some resources that you may want to look at in terms of identifying what are those businesses if you're not aware of them. Preferably you should, it would be a good idea for you to actually know who they are. But your competitors, sort of knowing what your competition is critical in this entire, business of figuring out what your advantages are. So you want to gather intelligence on your competitors, knowing who they are. We need to know, what are their strengths? What do they do well? How long have they been in business? Who are their major customers? What are their weaknesses? Where they may be falling short of, of delivering value to the customer in a way that, allows you to be able to perhaps meet some void. So what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? So think about, when you think about weaknesses, you want to think about it from the standpoint of, that may be your competitive edge, coming into a marketplace to fill a particular void, to allow you to sort of position yourself, as an acceptable alternative. But a common, one of the things that if your competitors are large companies, or major companies, major operators, you shouldn't be disappointed, because one of the things that you want to consider is that a common challenge that they tend to have is the inability to make decisions quickly. Okay, to make certain decisions quickly. There's normally a chain of command that they sort of have to observe in terms of decision making. And part of the decision making is allocating resources to a particular product or a particular effort. Again, the chain of command, and they don't necessarily respond to changing needs as quickly as a small, nimble company like yours would. For you, it's a question of survival. For larger companies, it's a question of, we will get there, if the market really sort of, is proven. So thinking about, large competitor that's sizable, you want to think about the fact that you can make decisions pretty quickly. You can allocate resources as you need to pretty quickly if there's a market opportunity that's available to you, and you can respond to whatever the requirements are almost seamlessly, turning on a dime, if you will. But the one advantage that large competitors tend to have that you want to be aware of is the fact that they do have, if nothing else, they have financial leverage. They can self-finance. A lot of the initiatives that they pursue, in fact, they may have a line of credit if it's something huge, but if it's not something necessarily, cost prohibitive, they can probably fund it internally. Where smaller companies have to pay attention to, where it sort of places its capital investment, because it's simply not as as significant as larger companies. So, ultimately, though, what you want to think about is how do I go about sort of finding, the opportunity? How do I go about mining for tactics that I can implement, that you can implement to allow your company to position itself favorably, even in the view of large competitors, being in the marketplace. And if it's a small competitor, same thing. How do I mine for tactics that allow the company to position itself, to really take advantage of some weaknesses and some voids that are left by the lack of complete execution by your competitor. The question that I'm going to ask now, and I really do want some responses, because you have to know this if you're in business. Have you identified your strong competitors? How do you think you stack up against your competitors? And again, what do you think your edges? I'm taking questions. I'm taking responses. Have you identified your strong competitors? You know who they are.
I'm open to speaking again. So I have, and I think the challenge that I've encountered is that, so because I'm in a very kind of technology focused field, when I look at, just by looking at their websites and speaking with some of them, is that they have a lot more technology. So
yeah,
they have a bigger team. So those are the two things that I see as a potential from a client perspective. It would be more of a selling point because of that, because I guess it would inspire trust that the project will be completed. So I think, so it's one is having access to all the technology that's out there. Some of them have been able to, so for example, some of them have been able to pivot to providing live stream services, which is now what a lot of conferences are kind of moving into. So now that we're realizing that we can do things virtually, it's becoming a thing for video production companies to offer, and they've been able to pivot much quicker than I have around that aspect. And so so one is staffing, having the team, and having the bandwidth to have the technology. So
have you given, Will, have you given any thought to how you might go about thinking about some tactics to counter those advantages, or to sort of bridge that gap, or to begin to bridge the gap? Have there been any strategic sort of initiatives that you've been thinking about? Have you been talking to colleagues about, how you can potentially perhaps mutually help each other to do that?
I've been speaking to a couple, but it's other than my connections to the public health field, there isn't anything that they see that I can bring. In terms of expertise, we're pretty much on par in terms of the service delivery. So it's more about the client base that I have. So
it's strictly redundant in some ways, in terms of colleagues.
Feels that way.
Well, when we sort of move along in this, the next part of this, where we talk about the business model, I think that will begin to help to think about, okay, so what are the solutions? If I feel as though that if pricing is the only competitive edge, what's the solution? We can begin to think about and talk about some of those things, because sometimes, as you would see, your business model shouldn't be unchangeable. Amazon changed its model to some extent. It modified it anyway, and FedEx and Co did as well. So there are ways to think about, how do I modify my business model to position myself to be more unique in the marketplace. So that's something that we can think about, and I'd be, by the way, happy to work with you one-on-one as you're thinking through some of these strategies. Something that quite frankly, I like. I enjoy that. So, so we can do that. Is Luciana sort of thinking about answering a question?
Hi, everyone. Hi. Um, I have done competitors analysis some years ago in my area. I am a photographer, and that is photographers everywhere, right? So I know not everyone is my competition, but there is a lot of competition around where I am. So I'm getting to the conclusion that I decided to go and work on my brand. I think that's the way that I'm going to be able to differentiate from everybody else, which,
Right.
is that or price. People go for the lower price, but I can really
Mm-hmm.
keep that for a long term, like we mentioned before. So I think maybe brand myself in a different way, like decide on a style of one of my photos to look and go with that. I think might be the way to go, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's absolutely, something to think about. Okay, so maybe it's like branding. Pricing is one way, but pricing, as I said, is dangerous, and I will caution you against reducing pricing too much, because at some point,
Yes.
we
I've
have
been there.
we have clients we have clients that were pretty big, but that were doing 2% in margin, because they priced themselves so low for so long. And the market begins to accept them at that price, or see them, okay, this is the value that, that we think that you're
Exactly.
going to bring, and this is what we're going to pay for it. So be careful with that. But I do like the idea of looking at this, looking at, okay, so how do I develop a brand? A brand that's sort of thought of as being more exclusive, perhaps. That is certainly something that you can consider.
It's
And
another
I
full-time
think,
job, though.
you have a full-time job while you're building the business. Is that what you're saying?
I think work on your brand is a lot of work. It's a lot of
Yes.
time. It's time consuming. It's kind of like having another full-time job on the top of your job to do that. So.
Yeah, well, for sure. And, ultimately it is, it's an exercise that, it also probably requires some outside assistance to do that, to really establish yourself or reestablish yourself in the marketplace. Making sure that your image is at that level. And this is something I was thinking of quite a bit the other day, because there are certain brands that, when you think about them, you are prepared to pay a little more, because you're knowing that you're getting, a certain amount of quality. So I think if you can deliver the services, on par with, with how you're establishing your brand, if you can sort of, hold on long enough in the marketplace, then you can potentially have an upside. But the key is to become known, fairly known, as being at a certain, level. Yes, it's a little more expensive, but you can rely on the product that you get, on the output. So, but that competitive analysis that we're talking about, this is, again, this is sort of like something that's very, very critical to do. It's an exercise that is critical. Going back for a minute on the pricing, I will just give you an example of an issue that I faced the other day. I have a relatively expensive watch that I bought some time ago, and it was a mechanical watch, and there was a piece came loose, and I can hear it. Okay, so it's no longer working, but the piece came loose, and so I took it to one store just to ask them, okay, what would it cost to repair this? And it was just some absolutely astronomical number. And this was like, from a high-end store. So I asked my daughter, I was in a mall, and there was a watch repair in the back bay, and there was a watch repairer, and I went to his stall. He's been there for a while. I mean, I've seen him for the past 5 years. And, so I went and I asked him, I said, do you do mechanical watch repairs? He said yes. I said, well, do you do it? Would you take the chance of doing it with higher end watches? And he said, well, I've done a number of those. I can do it, and I will guarantee it. And so I sent the watch back to my daughter, and I didn't ask him how much, by the way. But I sent the watch with my daughter and she dropped it off, and she picked it up in the afternoon. And I didn't expect her to pick it up. I expected to pick it up. So, I said, okay, well, let me go pick it up now because I want to pay. She goes, no, Dad, I picked it up. He charged $20. Now he charged 1/10 of what, somebody else in another store is charging.
Wow.
But I would have paid $100 for him to do it. So again, sort of knowing where you're pricing in the market and being careful about, underpricing your services, that is something that is very real. And it means you really do have to, as this module and this sort of section tells you, you do have to study your competitors. Study your competitors, know what they're pricing at. So, if he had studied his competitors in that entire area, he would have known that, oh, they're pricing 10 times what I'm charging for this. And yes, his overhead is low, and I understand that his overhead is low because he's in a stall, a pretty nice stall, but a stall. But it's in the back bay, but his competitors are pricing 10 times what he was pricing. So very, very critical. You have to know what your competitors are doing, what they're bringing to the marketplace, and how they're pricing their product. As far as Luciana is concerned, I mean, I'm sure that there are people who just don't even ask. They don't shop. So they would just go to and pay like that, a significant price just to open the back and screw something on. But there are many other people who are in sort of that middle market that they want to know they're getting value, a certain kind of value for them. So think about the balance between the two when one goes to begin to think about their competitive analysis, their market edge, their pricing edge. Those two factors, should be in balance. Okay, so now we will proceed to the next slide, which now begins to talk about business models. Okay, so the business. Oh, by the way, are there any questions on competitive advantage? Okay, so business models. Okay, so the business model. What is a business model? We hear this a lot. Business model, business model, business model. But the business model is a method. It is a method. It is a method by which the company uses resources. Okay. Method by which you use resource in delivering value while you maximize your profits and you maximize growth. It's a method by which the company uses resources in delivering value while maximizing profit and growth. So the business model is a structure or it's a framework for delivering products or services. So your business model is absolutely critical. Okay, your method is critical, and you want to think of this as a major part of the planning process. You have to evaluate the business model, and you have to evaluate it, in a very dispassionate but thorough way, because the business model could be it could be the life or death of your company. If your business strategy changes, you may need to modify your business model to align with it. So those two things actually work together: your business model and your strategy. So, as I said, it's a model by which the organization uses resources to deliver value to your customers while maximizing profit and growth. So the structural framework that it provides, it has elements. Okay. So if you sort of refer to, before I have you refer to anything, let's go to slide 9, please. Let's talk about the elements of of the business model. Okay, so you have the elements, the necessary elements when you think of business model, are your type of customers you serve. Okay, so who are those customers that we're targeting? The way customers use your products, services, the distribution mechanisms that you have, the method of distribution, I should say, your promotional strategy, and that goes to what I was mentioning with what we were just discussing with Luciano. Your operational tasks to be performed, the resource requirements, and how profit and revenue is generated. Those are the elements that you want to think about that inform what your structure is going to be. So on page 81, it sort of gives us an example of business model. It says two businesses that sell the same product or service can have quite different business models. For example, you have both Zappos and you have DSW that sells shoes and accessories. But Zappos receives their orders via the telephone or online, receives payments from the customer and ships the order directly to the customer. DSW is primarily a retail operation. They sell various brands of shoes and accessories. But the choice between the business model, you should know, has a profound effect on all aspects of their businesses. So I'm going down to, and I want you to actually sort of look at page 82 of Kauffman, because it sort of gives you a number of business models here, and it sort of breaks them down for if it's not intuitive to you in terms of how you think about it. But, you want to be able to use this to really hone in, okay, this is my business model, and ask yourself, is this the business model that I really intend to have? Or did this just happen, by default because I did not decide, and it doesn't serve me well? So the types of business models that one sees are that are fairly common: brick and mortar. Okay, this of course, what that is, the old-fashioned storefront somewhere where you have this physical location, you're paying a lot of rent. Customers only come to that location to buy. And a permutation of the bricks and mortar is that companies that have now taken it to like have an online presence as well. So now that you've got a slightly expansive approach where it's the click business model, clicks and bricks business model. So it allows them to buy online and pick up at the stores, and that is something like Best Buy and a lot of these other companies, especially during the time of COVID, have done. A lot of small businesses have sort of going into this. However, it's now a lot, oftentimes delivery. So bricks and mortar is one way. The subscription-based model, we know what that is. Recurring revenues consistently every year or month, by a subscription. So your for instance, your gym membership is an example of this sort of a thing. Then you have the bait and hook. So where you produce a product, but in fact, Peter Hurst and I were talking about this the other day with respect to Peloton. Okay, so you pay $2,000 for your Peloton bike, but in order for the Peloton bike to be worth anything, you have to have $1,000 monthly subscription to sort of do this. It's not $1,000, but it's like $50 or $60, maybe $100, depending on what you want, to do their classes or to have access to some of the fancy video, interactive stuff that makes you feel as though you're outside. And while that has value to some people, if you're thinking about what your ultimate needs are, it may not necessarily add value to you, but it's a bait and hook in that you pay a lot for the bike in order to be able to have the subscription integration, that technology integration with the bike that sort of make the entire package work. But that is ongoing. It's indefinite. It's infinite in terms of term, because they will never stop producing those software. So that's the bait and hook. It's worked phenomenally successful successfully for Peloton, though. So that's the beaten hook. Multi-level marketing, we know what that is. Direct sales, we know what that is. You have the auction model, and the auction model, for instance, eBay. That's an auction model. And then you have the service industry. And now, just to focus on the service industry, it's a large category of our economy and presents the most complex and challenging business model. The service sector consists of such industries as insurance companies, tourism, banking, education, franchises, restaurants, transportation, healthcare, consulting, investment, and legal services, among others. The problem that many service providers face is how to deliver quality services efficiently and effectively every time. There has to be a system. There has to be a system that says that each and every time we invoice someone for something, we would have delivered value. And we would have delivered value not at a loss because we're paying for additional time of personnel. We're delivering value at a healthy margin. So a typical service business model, they focus on increasing customer satisfaction, which leads to loyalty, which leads to profitability. So I think that it should not be typical. I think it needs to be just about every single business model. I mean, think about having customer satisfaction, because if you don't, your biggest sales are going to be the resales. So if customers are not satisfied, they're not coming back. We need loyalty. Loyalty begets profitability. So the increase in profitability is related to customer retention. It's typically less expensive to keep an existing customer than acquire new ones. So how many of us are service industries, by the way? I neglected to sort of get a quick sort of introduction at the beginning, but anyone here service industry? Well, I know Will is, and I know, Luciana is as well. Anyone else? So presumably, everybody else is products. But the service industry, as far as our base of companies, most of them are service industries. Many of them, I should say, are service industries. And service industries are very, it's a challenging business model to get right, because there are a lot of costs involved, because normally we're using, human beings to produce, and it means that, we have significant costs associated with that. But it's very important to pay attention to a lot of the details, pay attention to your business model, and ensure that the business model as well as the competitive advantage are working hand in hand. Your strategy, is really contemplating how they're working. So collective business systems, which, we won't pay a lot of attention to, other than to say franchising. So a collective business model is where you have, it's a business that offers businesses transportation, a model that offers businesses, tradespersons, or professionals in similar or related fields opportunity to pool resources, share information, and gain benefits by paying fees to belong. Okay, so, the most common here for our purposes are franchises, which tend to be good because sort of, it's plug and play pretty much. You pay your money, everything has been thought out for you, including marketing. That's all paid for as part of the fees that you're paying for those services. It's something that typically, tends to be proven, and there's some measure of thoughtfulness in terms of, where locations are going to be. And so franchises is one opportunity to do so. And then you have the online delivery model, where you have, a number of different services that can be provided, brokerage services, advertising services, being an intermediary, and that covers, a fairly significant broad category of fields, being an intermediary. and information services. Dun & Bradstreet, which you should be familiar with. Hoover's is an information service, which you should also be familiar with. Your local library, by the way, should be able to provide you access with Hoover's, where you can gain information, fairly detailed information on your competitors, on companies that you would regard as competitors. But that's another business model that we see. Online delivery, brokerage services, advertising services, intermediaries, and information. So the success of your company is directly related to how well your business model matches your customers' expectations. That is something that is absolutely critical to really think about. Now, in terms of doing analysis of what your business model is, and if it is what you intended it to be, or if it is ultimately, after you've done a thorough sort of examination, if it is what you thought it was, because it could be something different to what you thought it was. Some of these areas are, have some interchangeable sort of aspects to them. So identifying business model is going to be critical. And one thing that I think we really need to emphasize is that, there has to be the willingness. There has to be the willingness to change with the times or change with circumstances. This particular on page 84, there's a discussion of this entrepreneur and founder of Spacecraft Inc., which was in Alabama. This man named King. He started his business in his basement in '61, and they were designing and building satellites. That was their initial build business. They built only three. I'm sorry, before the program was transferred to NASA from the U.S. Army. So they were supplying the U.S. Army, and then it went to NASA. And so that meant that was the sort of the end of their business in that regard. So later they set up the manual subsystems for the Apollo mission, completing 15 systems before Apollo program came to a halt. So back to square one. SCI began to manufacture subsystems for F-4 jets for the Department of Defense. They built thousands before they found themselves once again searching for a new market need to fill. So that opportunity went away. They kept moving to opportunities. Those opportunities were moving away from them ultimately. So in the late 70s and early 80s, SCI made computers for IBM and evolved into a Fortune 300 company. So in just a few years, they grew from a handful of people to thousands of employees working in plants all over the world. Some industry analysts dubbed Mr. King the father of contract manufacturing. So, what this, and I will just actually skip down. Let me skip down to, so ultimately in 2001, when SCI Systems was acquired by Sanmina for $6 billion, SCI was a publicly traded company operating 49 facilities in 19 countries and employing more than 35,000 people. So ultimately, you could never, so the company, SCI, Spacecraft Inc., they started with one model. Okay, this is how they're going to sort of make their money. This is their market. This is what they're catering to. These are the products that they're making. As the market changed and moved away from them, they realized that survival was going to depend on them changing. So, you don't just give up. You just have to change. You got to change the business model and pursue what the next opportunity is going to be. And ultimately, you'll emerge at a place where, you can develop those strategic advantages, all of the edges that we mentioned that, that you need to have. Those factors sort of begin to come. If you come into their own, if there is a thoughtful strategy that's deployed with respect to shifting the model in order to meet market needs. Okay, so on that same page in 83, it's asking you to look at your business model to sort of conduct an analysis of what it is. And I would say that as you build your strategic plan, be constantly mindful of the need to, have a business model that is malleable, that is certain. You kind of know what it is, and you know why that's the chosen business model, but certainly malleable and ready to change if need be, based upon market conditions. So. So just to summarize, business model is not a static concept. It's dictated by your market needs. If the market becomes fully saturated or extinct, you should revisit it. And we should be looking to maintain market position and grow. Because those two things are reliant upon your habit of ceaselessly scanning for relevance. You have to ceaselessly scan for relevance. Make sure that your company is relevant to the times and the needs of the market. Develop a habit of looking ahead. Pay attention to industry trends. So you maintain a constant connection to information flow. Actively observe, actively listen, actively evaluate the information that's coming to you, what's happening in the news, and tactically plan. Okay, you've got to plan to build. So that's what we saw with SCI, and that's what I would encourage you strongly to think of, how you should think of business. Now, going to exit strategy, which actually starts at slide 12, and this is our last section of the three today. So exit strategy. I will say that you've got to start your exit strategy early, before you don't wait until you're at the end to plan the end. You got to plan the end at the beginning. So you may want to say to yourself, just in the process of planning, begin to think about how do I sort of see myself? How do I want the business to serve me? And when it's time for me to turn off the lights, so to speak, and go and do, wildly interesting things, even more wild and interesting than my business, how am I going to get there? How do I get to that place? The only way that you can get there is if you plan it. You don't want it to be planned for you, because if you fail to plan, it will be planned for you, just by circumstances or happenstance. So one of the passages in the book, they say, you may think to yourself, well, why would I design exit strategy when I'm still enjoying my business? It's so you want to think about it as a way of, this is a means of investing in your business. It's an asset that you've invested in, but you continue to invest in it by actually planning how it's going to work. So it's a revenue stream that supports you right now. You may have a sizable distribution, at the end of each year, and that's great. But the last thing that you want is complacency. Okay, this is something that is commonly overlooked. Planning the exit at the early part is commonly overlooked as a consideration as part of the strategy by many, many entrepreneurs, and that is something that is just simply not good. As I said, if you don't plan beforehand, you'll sort of leave it to chance. And how do we think about our heirs and our successors? How do we think about those things? So think of it, your exit strategy early, and think of it as, okay, I've got to think about what the next major stage of my business is going to be. So there are going to be a succession of stages in the duration of carrying out your business and your business plan. But planning it early gives you that sense of certainty, relative sense of certainty, as to what that next major stage beyond you, sort of staring it with your personal efforts will be. Now, when we talk about planning, you have to think about the upside plan. Okay, business is making money. Exit strategy lets you cut out a stake of your company and sell it to someone perhaps, or completely get out of business. Upside plan, you get out while it's profitable. There's a contingency plan that I think owners should also, have in mind. And if at some point that the upside plan is determined to be unattainable because the market keeps shifting, you've shifted with it, you've gotten out ahead of things, but there's been some years of pretty good success. But maybe, as we talked about earlier in the modules, maybe we're experiencing, a stage in the life cycle of the market or the life cycle of the business where it becomes saturated and the sort of you've maximized the potential. The industry has peaked and it's maximized its potential, or the company has maximized its potential, and you begin to see signs of struggle and decline. You want to begin to think about how to implement an exit strategy to not lose all. It's better to save something, to salvage something, than to lose the entire thing. So along the way, you would plan. You're not planning necessarily for that now, but you plan for upside. But always keep in mind that there is a point at which you could, if it becomes necessary to do so, to begin to think about what the downside is going to be. If it looks as though like it's imminent, and that again goes to my previous point of you want to be constantly scanning, figuring out what direction the marketplace is going in, figuring out what the opportunities are, but ultimately think about this from the standpoint of, okay, how do I now plan to salvage all of this effort that I put in over the past 10 years in this business? I've made some money, I've had some successes, but we simply are peaked. What do I do? And there's some options that we're going to talk about in this whole concept of exit strategy to address some of those things. But ultimately, it is critical to think of an ideal exit strategy at the inception of planning. So at the very early stages of your strategic planning. And this is an exercise that, all of us should be doing. You want to think about what your exit strategy is. So slide 12, as I had mentioned, a failure to plan an exit that aligns with your goals and your strategy is an act equivalent to ceding the outcome to fate and arbitrary circumstances. It's an act. A failure to plan is an act, and you really do have to think of it this way, because this is what it is. Because as I said, if you don't plan it, it's going to plan itself for you. So, you don't want to cede the outcome of the fate of your business to arbitrary circumstances. At least you want to have a roadmap to getting to where you want to go. So you have to think of yourself as having a responsibility to dictate the course of your business and guide the outcomes. And it's not only for yourself, but it's also for your team. It's for your team, and it's for you to continue to position yourself favorably in the marketplace. So that's sort of the way I'm thinking about it. So the benefits of having an exit strategy that is well planned is protecting the value of the business that you have built, as I mentioned. It allows you also to create a smooth transition to your management team or to family members. It allows you to generate a potential income for retirement and disability. It allows you to enhance the future worth of the business. It reduces, or it defers potential tax impacts on your estate, your spouse, or your family. But ultimately, and this is like a big factor, should be a motivator to do it early, is to create a strategic direction for your business's growth, and your entire team needs to buy into this. Now, ultimately, the business owner, the founder, leads the whole sort of, the exit strategy is going to be guided by what you think. But I often sort of feel I feel that it's important to also have, once you've gotten a clear picture of what the outcome is, it's important to have, senior people who are senior or critical to or have a stake in the outcome of the business to sort of understand what your thought process is in terms of exit strategies, because it really helps everybody to line up behind that goal. And the reasons for that can be seen when we talk about the types of exit strategies in slide 13. So when we talk about exit strategy, the exits that we can consider, each comes with pros and cons. And let me make sure that I'm also sort of referring back to the book, because I want us to sort of look at this in a way that, okay, yeah, there we go. So the exits come with pros and cons. So we have a merger with another company. That's one exit. We have acquisition by another company. Okay, so a merger is a marrying, acquisition is being absorbed into. We have a company sale. Company sale, the difference between a company sale and a merger or acquisition is that company sale is usually to individuals, so, you advertise a business somewhere, it's sold to an individual, that's sort of distinct from merger and acquisition. A franchising of the company, okay, is a potential way of exiting. Employee stock option plans. So some ESOPs, and they call ESOPs, some ESOPs can be structured in a way that's significant enough that allows employees to ultimately access more than a majority stake in the company. And so that is a way of actually doing this. And you incentivize employees to do this with performance, by the way. So rewarding performance. And then the last that we want to talk about for now is initial public offerings. Now, I mentioned that they have pros and cons on page 87, I believe it is. Let's go to the book. So on page 87, it sort of, gives us a picture into what these look like. And I would ask you to, and you're thinking about, planning your exit, to really look at these and say, what ultimately would I like to be able to see happen to our company? Now, some of these, by the way, are tools that you could use not only for your own exit, but for your company's growth, to exit other companies and grow yours. So merger with another company. The company joins with an existing company. So in that case, the advantage is the owner may receive cash and stock. Resources of both companies are combined, and some of the management may remain constant. Normally, when you're talking about a merger, also you reduce costs because you have some redundancies. Disadvantages, new owners or managers may have different philosophies, ways of doing business, and existing staff may have less control, and blending the two cultures may be difficult. So there is the integrating part of a merger that is absolutely critical. There's an integration part of acquisition as well, and there are companies that are, that charge money to actually make the integration, sort of have integration strategy planned out. But disadvantage of different philosophies, but that is something that one should try to sort of, inspect early in the process of a merger, although some things really do not show themselves until after the deal is done. Ways of doing business is something that you should pretty much be aware of, but less control is something that you cannot avoid, because one party or the other is going to have less control, and blending of two cultures may be difficult. So those are considerations. Acquisition is where one company is bought out by another existing entity. The owner receives, the advantages are the owner receives cash or stock for the sale and management contract is negotiable for the owner to stay on during a transition. That is almost indispensable. So if you think about yourself as someone who may actually exit from a company, and go into, to go on to sort of, the things that you want to do at the next phase of your life, there's normally a point at which a period for which your services will be required because it does two things. One is it sort of maintains a certain amount of stability with the customer base, particularly if you are deemed to be a sort of a key person to the business. And also that contract allows for the seamless transfer of intellectual capital, certain kinds of know-how, certain kinds of things that will be regarded as intellectual secrets, are then transferred in the process of that period. And the reason why that's important is because the owner, you as an owner, if you are the one that's exiting and you're sort of providing those services, normally there would be some kind of a stock that retention that then gets bought out, or some sort of an incentive clause that allows you to have a bonus depending on the performance of the company for a few years after you've left. So you're now incentivized to make sure that they are fully equipped to be able to carry on the business, maximize the profits, and you're still rewarded after you're gone. It happens the other way as well. If you are a company that is acquiring another company, that is a feature that you would have, where that the key persons have contracts to allow for a proper transition and to allow for continuity and continuation of profits and maximizing profits. The disadvantages of that acquisition, though, being acquired by another company or acquiring another company, the fit is not always appropriate for the business or employees, and corporate identity or brand may diminish. And so, again, I made reference to, if the key person is regarded to be the face of the company, and then it gets out into the marketplace that that company has now been acquired by another company, it's, there's some question with respect to the, did this company lose some value? But hopefully that is diminished or minimized, I should say, with that period of service, that transitional services that the former owner or owners would provide, or key persons will provide. And then we have the sale of a company, where the company is sold outright. Okay, owner may receive cash immediately or over time. Normally in smaller companies there is some seller financing that's part of the deal, and that's a good way of also keeping companies, keeping the seller from sandbagging you, so to speak, or keeping you from sandbagging somebody else. So that's the sale part of that. And then, but the disadvantage is that it may be difficult to find the right buyer at the right price, and changes in ownership may be difficult for employees in a sale of a company. Those companies are typically smaller companies where, the face actually matters. Franchising the company, the business concept replicated in the company, expands locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally. And the advantages are: owner receives cash for each franchise. So if you decided to develop a franchise, you get cash for each subscription. Current corporate management is maintained, and the enterprise sees an opportunity for a large-scale growth. So potential for huge growth. And there's a significant amount of infusion of capital each time a franchise is bought. And these things tend to be structured in a way that they're sort of self-perpetuating in many respects, and you're receiving discretionary sort of cash that's, for the most part, upside. Process. So the disadvantage is that the process may be difficult and time-consuming to actually establish a franchise. It's a lot of legal work involved there, and operational sort of consultancy work. And the business concept may not be appropriate for franchising. So that's something that one will have to think about. Employee stock ownership plans. Employees receive shares or stock of the company over time. So key employees are rewarded for their contributions They receive incentives for staying with the company for a number of years and a share in the profits of the company they have helped to grow. So that's a major, major advantage for a company, for an employee to go to a company to begin with. And it's a major feature of companies that really want to have competitive advantages and to be able to retain valued employees that are driving also revenues. That's a feature of doing that. It's a major advantage. Owner can, however, the disadvantage is the owner can borrow funds from the plan as a loan to the company. Employees may lose their shares if they leave the company. And if the value of the company or stock goes down, the employees share in the burden. So it's like it's a marriage. The good news is, so that's the potential downside, but the whole idea is if you have a good team of people who are part of the core of the operation, who are really good at what they do, you have a lot of these, your goals, your objectives aligned, you have the ability to share with your major team about how you may want to pivot to take advantage of some other opportunity, change your business model if you need to. Having a solid team that is in it with you makes a huge difference. So while it's a potential disadvantage, I see even this as, okay, something else went wrong. If the owner is borrowing funds from the plan as a loan to the company, I mean, that's something that should be disclosed. And it means that the company is probably in some sort of a distress. And losing your shares if you leave the company early, normally you have like a vesting schedule, so maybe over like 5 years with an ESOP plan. It's 5 years before all of the shares get vested, so it's a long-term thing. It may feel like it's a long time for you, but if you think about it from the standpoint of, okay, all of the other key employees who are in this business with me who are critical, I want them to be here for a long enough period of time to make this business really successful, and I want them incentivized to make the business really successful. So I believe when you incentivize your fellow employees or your employees, it does make a difference. It does bring a sort of different mindsets to the business. And then finally, the IPO. Shares of the company is sold on the public market in the stock exchange, and the shares convert to cash for investors. The major shareholders control the company, and investors, you see potentially high returns. I mean, that's the upside of the stock market. The stock market tends to grow, and as we can see, we see the index of a collection of different markets. And we see how they have grown consistently, all grown over time. I mean, and typically, if your company is doing what it's supposed to do, if it's doing reasonably well, it grows. I mean, it was Alan Greenspan who used to call it irrational exuberance, but it's been now 20 years of irrational exuberance, which, it's hard to fathom why the market grows the way it does, but it has. So that's a nice thing of having the IPO and being in a market that, over time really begins to really increases in value. But the downside is that the company needs high growth to generate earnings and investors. That used to be a rule, not necessarily anymore, but anyway. So how company needs high growth to generate earnings and investors' interest. Process is costly. That is a big factor, and the outcome is uncertain. So, and one thing I would add is, it's a highly regulated industry. And, you as an owner, if you ever experience an IPO, you can't just sell your shares and liquidate a certain amount. You are limited in terms of what you can liquidate over time. There has to be major disclosures that are filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, like S-1 statements. Every time you have a senior manager or an owner sell shares, you do have to disclose it to the marketplace, and it could affect market prices. So it's a good way of building value, but the potential downside, if you're really trying to just like cash out, there's no such, Jeff Bezos can't cash out of Amazon. I mean, he's just going to have to be worth, $100 billion for however long he's going to have to be worth it. But there is no cashing out right now. A lot of that is going to be on paper, because if he cashes out, the market gets jittery. The stock prices can plummet. So that's it on IPOs. That is it with respect to the exit strategies. I know that some of this stuff seems like it's like far-fetched, but it's really not. You should be thinking about these things. You should be thinking about, how are you going to get out of the company? How are you going to, even if you were to pass it on to your children or to your nieces or nephews or, loved ones, how do you go about doing it? And it's something that needs to be planned for. And it needs to be, it sort of needs to be locked into the culture of the company, of your company as you are building. And going back to the point of, planning with the beginning in mind, that's actually a statement. I saw it in the book, but it's also a statement. I think it was Stephen Covey. I've heard also with that. I first heard Stephen Covey with that statement years ago. You plan with the end in mind. So that's how you want to think about exit strategy. It's absolutely indispensable to your end time planning. And, as you begin to go away, I want you to think about, which of the exit strategies you think best serves your personal and business goal and why. And once you have done that exercise, begin to map, okay, what's our strategy to get to that place? All of these modules sort of build on each other in a way, and ultimately they come together to give you a strategic plan and direction for your company, something that you can share with, each and every one of you should have a strategic plan with 3 to 5 year projections, because when you need capital, it's going to be necessary. Whether it's bank debt or whether it's equity capital, it's going to be absolutely necessary. You have to have a strategic plan. So in conclusion, and I know that we're at 11:45 roughly, but I'm going to conclude and I'm going to allow for any questions and discussion if there's any. But on slide 15, again, I urge you to begin to map and document your business strategy. If you have had one, revisit it. Revisit the 3 areas that were discussed in this module. Looking at this module, your competitive advantage, make sure that is crystal clear to you. Make sure it's also crystal clear to your senior management. In fact, I will say all of the key people in your company should agree to what the company's competitive advantage is. So that's not something that you keep to yourself. You have to share it. The business model, again, it shouldn't be by default. It should be if it happened by default and it's really successful, you should at least know what it is. This is what the business model is. And you should also know what the options are. If the market were to move away from you, what some of the available options may be. How can we sort of take what we're doing now and pivot into something else to meet the market over here in the direction that it's going? Get ahead of it and meet it, and have it meet you there. Is the ideal situation. Having the market meet you, already prepared to do business and deliver services, deliver value, is really key. So think about the business model not just for what it is now, but do some contingency planning. What are some options that you can begin to think about based upon some of the examples that are outlined in the book? And then lastly, your exit strategy is absolutely critical to sort of have an idea what that should be early on. Begin by planning, begin with end in mind. So, exit strategy should be something that is thought through. And that's going to be it for me for today. I'm going to leave the floor open for anyone to provide any comments, share any thoughts, and we can then wrap up.
Too much scenery. It's a lot to absorb.
I know. I tried to keep it as condensed as possible, but
it's not stuff you didn't hear before, but it's every time you hear it, make you rethink about it. Like supposed to be doing that. I had to get that done. So
yes,
good information.
No, absolutely. And what I would say is that you hear it, you would have heard it before, but sometimes you have to hear things and
Yeah.
sort of address it in a number of time and have it really sink in, have it really,
So
become
true,
part
yeah.
of what you do and how you do your business.
It's a
So,
kind of a reminder of, to get there and get done.
absolutely.
I think the competitive analysis is something that I think you have to really work on it and do, like you said, the questions, answer the questions to kind of
Mhm.
figure out exactly what it is, and that takes time. And it's good reminder.
Yeah, I mean, what one has to think about is like this is the art of working on your business. I mean, we're working in our business all the time. How to make sure that you're paying your bills, you're sustaining your household and the like. You're doing that, and that is something that you sort of do out of necessity. But to plan, in order to get to the place where you are beyond just, staying survival, you've got
Yes.
to really begin to strategically plan for the future and make sure the things that you're doing on a daily basis is lining up to what the plan is going to be to get there. Establishing benchmarks, establishing performance indicators that helps you to figure out, okay, am I going in the right direction here? Putting together, making sure that there are the financial protocols and controls. You're sort of producing monthly statements. Because you want to be looking at trend lines. It's very important to be looking at trend lines in the process of doing this. And so I would encourage you to continue to sort of, do what you're doing. I mean, I think this, as I said, this is a lot to, as you mentioned, this is a lot to absorb, but it's worth going back and looking at these, particularly if you're looking at the questions. That questions will lead you into what you need to be thinking about and what you need to be, looking at.
Definitely. Thank you.
But that will be it for today. So complete the evaluation, if you will, and remember that you can always reach out to me for one-on-one if you require it. And, we're still in the business of helping with PPP loan forgiveness. The deadline for the second drawer is coming up as this month. In a couple of weeks, I think it is. I'll get that exact date. But please do keep that in mind if that's something that applies to you. But thank you so much for participating today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, okay. Take care, Luciana.